Welcome to the Scholar Review. The Scholar is a Trials of Osiris scout rifle that you can get from either the lighthouse chest or from Vance this week right now. So I'm going to try to help you use it, analyze the situations this should be used in, and answer the ultimate question, is it any good? If you look at the stats, the first thing you'll notice is that it belongs to the high impact low rate of fire archetype of scout rifles. This archetype is really interesting as it allows you to 3-shot people like hand cannons, but there are some caveats you may not be aware of. Range is pretty good. Stability is a bit meh, but it can be jacked up by using perfect balance. Reload is pretty good even without outlaw. Max size of 13 is low, but it's mitigated by outlaw. One last thing to note is that aim assist is pretty low. For the sights, it really comes down to personal preference, but I just love red.ors because the sight is very clear. The first perk you have is outlaw, which sort of makes up for the small mag size and synergizes very well with the next perk. In the second trio of perks, we have Send It, Perfect Balance, and Custom Optics. I find Send It to be kinda redundant since this already has insane range, and I didn't notice much difference when using it. Custom Optics increases your zoom, and I find the zoom to be already high enough. Perfect Balance directly affects your gunplay as it increases stability, and that means you can realign your shots quicker, so that is the most helpful perk. And we have Reactive Reload, which increases damage by 33% for 3 seconds when you reload after a kill. In PvP, this gives you the ability to 2-shot people, which basically beats out 99% of primaries, which is, really nice. However, I have mixed feelings about this perk. First, 3 seconds is actually less than you think. And even though the reload is super fast with Outlaw, having to reload and reacquire your target still is a downtime, and sometimes I feel like the extra 33% for a couple of your shots isn't really worth the downtime. I'll get into this in PvP section. So how is it in PvP? Well, at first I was extremely crappy with the Scholar, but after a couple of weeks of using it, I think I may have the handle on this. The key to unlocking the Scholar's potential is keeping a distance from the action and making sure you're popping heads within 3 shots, because otherwise you are at a huge disadvantage. You really don't want any body shots mixed in, as time to kill increases by 0.40 seconds and it will allow them to kill you or cause them to run away with just a sliver of health. The Scholar deals 73 crit and 49 body shots, which means it will kill a Guardian in 3 crits or 4 to 5 body shots. With Reactive Reload, you do 97 crit and 65 body shot. While these numbers seem high, I've had so many cases where people ran away with practically 0 health. Let's look at the numbers. 2 crits and 1 body shot does 195 damage, and that is not enough to kill most people. 4 body shots do 196 damage, and again, people will walk away from that with just a sliver of health left. Even with Reactive Reload, 2 headshots do 194 damage, and people with high armor or the RAM will need a third shot to take them down, which practically removes the whole point of using Reactive Reload. As you can see, the damage is pretty high, but it's not nearly high enough. This gun's strength lies in the fact that you can kill someone, do a super fast reload, and then 2-shot someone else if you're accurate. But if you can't reduce the time to kill, there is no point in taking cover to reload and then having to reacquire the target. Speaking of time to kill, if you manage to land 3 headshots in a row, which is kinda hard to do against moving targets, you will kill people in 0.8 seconds, which would be pretty low if it weren't for the meta. With Reactive Reload, if you manage to kill people in 2 headshots, the time to kill drops all the way down to 0.4 seconds, which will allow you to compete with the meta pretty competitively. However, there just isn't enough occasions in which I can actually put Reactive Reload to use in PvP, because while it sounds good in theory, I rarely run into a case where I kill someone and the other guy is just waiting there for me to 2-shot him. Usually what happens is you kill someone and you can't find another person to kill within 3 seconds, or you kill someone but his teammate puts pressure on you so that you can't really peek your head out after reloading. It is wonderful for when people are just running to you one at a time, and it's absolutely sick 2-shotting people, reloading, and 2-shotting people again, but that doesn't happen very frequently. Not to mention, it is actually pretty difficult to 3-shot people in a 1v1 encounter because the enemy shots really make you flinch a lot, especially because of the high zoom on this weapon. This weapon excels at long range and is actually a very good anti-sniper because it only takes 3 well-placed headshots to take them down, and as snipers don't tend to move a lot, it is very easy to strafe and shoot them in the head 3 times before they can even damage you. So try to keep your encounters in long range, but watch out because most of the meta weapons kill from surprisingly far away, even the last word. Thorn, Red Death, and Hawkmoon can all handily reach into your range and kill you before you can pop 3 headshots. And not to mention, most maps force you into close to mid-range encounters, so it's kinda hard to try to keep a distance between you and your foes. But learn to play actually defensively and you'll be able to find a good line of sight or two, even in the most cramped maps like Cauldron, Thieves' Den, and Firebase Delphi. As for your playstyle, you will mostly be watching the action from pretty far away and removing yourself from the actual gunfights so you can pick off people from distance before they can shoot you back. This has 2 effects. First, it increases your KD. Seriously, when I started using the Scholar defensively, I noticed that my KD went from around 1.2 to 1.3 all the way to 2.0 plus because I was dying less. Why was I dying less? Because I was at a distance where only snipers and the most accurate of the hand cannon players could get me. Second, it really distances yourself from the action, and that's kinda boring. Most of the time I felt like Batman watching crime happening from a distance, and while that playstyle does net me higher KD, even as a very defensive player myself, I found it to be boring. But if that's your thing, go on right ahead. A few more words about the meta weapons and tactics and I'll go on to PvE. The time to kill on the meta weapons are extremely low and it's near damn impossible for you to take them out in 1v1 combat. So what you do is you use the range as your advantage and put in 1 crit shot before they do, so that you have an advantage. And too many people like to be aggressive for me to use the Scholar effectively sometimes, so keeping your eye on radar and having a good backup secondary is important. When I'm playing as Hunter, I usually have Knuckle Up Radar on, and for Warlocks and Titans, I recommend scoping out once in a while to see if someone's trying to blink up and shotgun you. For your secondary, I recommend a high impact shotgun or a fast charging fusion rifle. I personally really like Plan C and Excel's Curse for this. So to recap, it's good at range and while it has huge potential, in practice it falls short unless you're really good with your shots. For PvE, the story doesn't change much. The average distance of engagements is longer in PvE and the enemy density is higher, so reactive reload is much more useful here, but it's still not much. Like I said, for the bit of downtime you get, 3 to 4 shots get buff damage, and especially in PvE, I think just continuing to shoot is better. What that means is, I think just shooting somebody in the face 27 times continually with the Vision of Confluence is better than killing him up, reloading, reacquiring a bigger target, and shooting him 3 maybe 4 times with 33% extra damage. Now, Outlaw does make up for the lower mag size, but unless you're only dealing with tier 1 and tier 2 enemies, don't expect to get better sustained DPS than Scout Rifles with Field Scout. If you are going to use the Scout Rifle in PvE, I recommend popping a small mob such as a Drag or a Thrall, and then shooting at a tier 2 or Major for the next 3 seconds and repeating this. This works wonderfully against the Cabal as reactive reload quite clearly makes a difference in the shots needed to kill an enemy. If you're looking for the adept version, I recommend the Void version as there is already good arc and solo Scout Rifles. So in summary, the Scholar is a solid Scout Rifle that is amazing in theory, but not so much in practice in PvP due to the maps, people's playstyles, some people having more health than the others, and the relatively short duration of reactive reload. If you can make it work, you'll be rewarded with higher KD, longer kill streaks, and the ability to compete with the meta and snipers, but I personally find it very boring since you're always away from the action. In PvE, it's a bit better because of higher enemy density and the presence of tier 1 mobs, but I find that Outlaw plus reactive reload gimmick is not as powerful as I thought, and I'd rather use a Scout Rifle with a larger magazine size. Ultimately, this is a weapon with a ton of potential. It has a potential to outgun Thorn and the Last Word. In PvE, it has a potential to constantly have 33% bonus damage buff active. But it is pretty hard to get the most out of the Scholar, and even if you do, you might not like the playstyle. But I recommend you to at least pick it up and try it out and see if long range 2-shotting is for you. Thank you for watching, and I wish you all good luck in the trial so you can pick up the Scholar.